Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the April 23rd, 2025 meeting of the Fond du Lac City Council. The first item of business is roll call, which is done electronically, and I will declare a quorum is present with Mr. Godfrey absent. The next item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, which is followed by a moment of silent reflection. Please rise. All right, next on our agenda, we have some proclamations tonight. First, we have an Arbor Day proclamation. So I see Mr. Redmond, are you going to join me down there? And I'll meet you down in front. All right, whereas Arbor Day has been observed in Wisconsin since 1889, and whereas the city of Fond du Lac has been declared a tree We good? Okay. Sorry about that. All right, whereas the city of Fond du Lac has been declared a Tree City USA, and whereas historically Arbor Day is associated with Arbor Day program.
I just had to steal Trish's, so now you know what I had to do.
Bob Barker.
We need the Bob Barker
Yeah.
walk stick. That's what we.
Well, here, do you want to, well,
Yep. I can hold that.
yeah, if you don't mind. All right, where were we? Okay, historically, Arbor Day is associated with Arbor Day programs that enhance and renew our environment, and whereas Lakeshore Elementary School third grade students will participate in the observance by whole, oh my gosh, now I lost this one. Is this one? Okay, all right. This is the longest, shortest proclamation ever. Lakeshore third grade students will participate in the observance by holding an Arbor Day program on Friday, April 25th, 2025 at the Lakeside Park Pavilion at 1 p.m., followed by the Tree City USA Awards ceremony at 1:15 p.m. Now, therefore, I, Tiffany Brault, City Council President of the City of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, by my signature affixed, do hereby proclaim April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the City of Fond du Lac in recognition of the aesthetic, ecological usefulness of trees in our public ways and neighborhoods. All right, so then I'll hold on to that for you.
Thank you.
You want to say a few words?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I can top that one, but just wanted to thank everybody and thank the council for supporting our tree program with the EAB. It's been a challenging 10 years. We're getting to the end of that, so thank you very much. And this is our 37th year of being a Tree City USA, and there's 4 items that go into that. And I'm going to read those off so I don't forget any. But we have to have a tree board or department, a community tree ordinance, a community forestry program with an annual budget of $2 per capita, an Arbor Day observance, and a proclamation, which we have right here. So we do have the celebration this Friday at 1 o'clock at the pavilion. So whoever's able to attend, you're certainly invited. Thank you.
That's for you.
Thank you. And I'll stay here.
All right, hopefully we'll get through this. Next, we have our Kids to Parks Day. So do we have some representatives who want to come on down and join John up here? All right, this one's longer, so hopefully, hopefully the batteries last. it working? Here's that if you want to take it back. Thank you. Okay. Whereas May 17th, 2025 is the 15th Kids to Parks Day organized and launched by the National Park Trust, held annually on the third Saturday of May, and whereas the Fond du Lac Area United Way, in collaboration with the Fond du Lac Public Library, will be hosting a park scavenger hunt, games, and a giveaway by the Born Learning Trail from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. in Lakeside Park. And whereas Kids to Parks Day empowers kids and encourages families to get outdoors and visit America's parks. And whereas we should encourage children to lead a more active lifestyle to combat the issues of childhood obesity, diabetes, and hypertension. And whereas Kids to Parks Day is open to all children and adults across the country to encourage a large and diverse group of participants. And whereas Kids to Parks Day will broaden children's appreciation for nature and outdoors. Now, therefore, I, Tiffany Brault, President of the Fond du Lac City Council, do hereby proclaim May 17th, 2025 as Kids to Parks Day in the city of Fond du Lac and urge our entire community to participate in the events and to take the children in their lives to a neighborhood, state, or national park. All right, so I don't know which one of you, or if you want me to hold it, if you want to. But
Should we do the photo?
do the photo first?
Okay, perfect.
Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I would. First, I just want to thank the council for recognizing Kids to Parks Day. It is a national event, but we make it local, and we have in partnership with John Redmond and the library, at least in the city of Fond du Lac, for the last number of years. If you've not been out to Lakeside Park and seen the Born Learning Trail, I'd encourage you all to do that. It was the first in the county, and now we've gone on to have two more, one in North Fond du Lac and one in Campbellsport, with a fourth one coming soon. So we were the pioneers here. We keep it up. We're very proud of that. We're very proud of our partnership. And again, as the proclamation read, it's always the third Saturday of May. So Saturday, May 17th, 10 to noon. Come on out. Weather, we're still going to make it go. We've been out there in all the different types of weather, but we'll have some fun events. The library is always a wonderful partner. We'll have games and different activities. So again, thank you so much for this, and we appreciate the support.
Did either of you want to add anything? Okay. All right, well, thank you so much, and thank you. All right, next on our agenda is public hearings, and we have none, so we will move on to our consent agenda. The consent agenda finalizes the proposed actions for the meeting. A, April 9th, 2025 minutes, and B, list of claims dated April 16th, 2025. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Mullen and second by Mr. Heisler. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. You can just, yeah. All right, thank you. That passes unanimously. Next on our agenda is audience comments, agenda and non-agenda items. The presiding officer will limit speaking time for non-agenda items to 1 minute and items noticed on the agenda to 5 minutes. Ms. Hefter, do we have anyone wishing to speak? We do not. So that concludes our audience comments. Next, we'll move on to our action items. Action item A is resolution number 9174, a resolution making a reappointment to the Advisory Park Board, and our introduction is by our city manager, Mr. Moore.
Thanks and good evening, everyone. This is a reappointment for Lisa Mick. She's served one term already on the Park Board and graciously has volunteered to step up for another term, so I recommend her reappointment.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Motion to approve. Motion by Mr. Zimmerman and second by Mr. Schussler. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. Item B is resolution number 9175, a resolution making an appointment to the Board of Appeals. And again, our introduction is by our city manager, Mr. Moore.
Thanks again. I recommend the appointment of Misty Snyder to the Board of Appeals. She's a banker She has an attention to detail that I think fits this and understands the importance of zoning. So with that, I recommend approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Moore? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Okay, motion by Mr. Mullen and second by Ms. Leering. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. Next is item C, resolution number 9176, a resolution authorizing sale of land in the West Industrial Park, and our introduction is by our Community Development Director, Ms. Benson.
Thank you, Ms. Brault. As you hopefully know, the city has 3 industrial parks, the West Industrial Park, the Southwest Industrial Park, and Fox Ridge. Wait a minute. Doc, are you telling me that you built a time machine out of a DeLorean? So this might seem relatively familiar. That's because at the last meeting, you approved the sale to TDI Machining. And as we were getting ready to work out our closing for the real estate transaction, they changed their LLC from TDI Machining LLC to Better Than Gold. And because this is a real estate transaction and names mean something, we need to redo the resolution to represent the title of the company that they wish to buy the property. Nothing else has changed. Sale price is the same. The project is still just as good, and we support the change in title so that we can move forward with closing.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions from council? I'm not seeing any, so I will entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Schussler and second by Mr. Heisler. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. With that, that ends our action items, so we'll move on to the presentation of input items. And we have a property assessment revaluation presentation presented by City Manager Mr. Moore, Director of Administration Ms. Davey, and City Assessor.
We'll give, let's see if we can.
Yeah, it might be that mic. Maggie. Yeah.
Sam, I think we're good. We found the culprit microphone. Yeah. Tricia, I'll take an extra long time, so there'll be plenty of time to run wires. So last time we talked about the revaluation, so this is revaluation 2.0. A lot of repetition from the last time, but not all. We've got some updated numbers because the dust has settled on Les's analysis and all the work that his team did. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. And we kept the agenda particularly light tonight so there'd be plenty of time for questions because I think starting Friday, you're going to get a lot of contacts from the public. So Maggie, let's go to the next slide. You've seen this one before. This is really important to remember, I think, for you to have sort of in your hip pocket as an explanation to people that the real point of a revaluation is to make sure that assessed values reflect market values. And at present, ours don't. There was quite a difference between the market values, which were exceeding the assessed values quite a lot. So the point is you want accuracy. We have that. But you also want uniformity, so you want everybody to be equally accurate, too. You don't want just pockets of accuracy. And so a revaluation takes care of both of those things as well. So last time we did this was in 2019. The state tells us in state statute that we need to do a revaluation once every 5 years. So that's going to be another answer to questions people ask you, I think. There's also another trigger, and that is when you're out of compliance. And you're out of compliance when you're 10% or more away from the market value. That means that you're either 90% or below or 110% and above. And I thought you might find it interesting that right now about 20% of the municipalities in Wisconsin are not in compliance because the real estate market's been so intense. And that includes those that became in compliance this year and last year. So long story short, you will see some numbers in this presentation that will show you just how much more the assessment changed this go-round than it did in 2019. And lastly, we put about 15,000 letters in the mail today, so I would imagine they will start landing in people's mailboxes on Friday and Saturday. Next, please. Again, some repetition here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the assessment ratio, and all that is the relationship between the assessed value, which is determined by the assessor, the city assessor, and the equalized value, which is determined by the state of Wisconsin. And if people ask you what's the difference, I'll tell you that the Department of Revenue is determining the equalized value by, think about the entire real estate value of the city of Fond du Lac. The Department of Revenue is not looking at each individual property. Les and his team are looking at each individual property to determine their assessed values, and then the total of all of those should equal roughly the equalized value or the fair market value. Next, please. So you saw this extract from a tax bill before, and in blue, what I've put a rectangle around in blue, that shows what somebody would see at their last tax bill, the total assessed value, and then there's also an estimated fair market value. Gives you an idea of what the difference between what those two would be, and the average assessment ratio. At that point, it was below 70%. Now it was closer to 60%. But what Les does is gets us back to 100%. And so post-revaluation, meaning now, as we tell people what their new assessments are, we go from 0.69 to 1, which is total compliance, and it makes sure that assessed value equals the market value, at least for one moment in time. Next, please. So I said that we were not in compliance. What that means is we were below 90%. Now, the Department of Revenue knows that the real estate market moves, it ebbs and it flows, and so you see those three red dots. Those are 22, 23, and 24 when we were below 90% in our assessment ratio. In other words, the assessed values were getting ever lower compared to the market values. But it doesn't mean we were going to be told by the Department of Revenue we had to do a revaluation based on that. We had to do a revaluation based on the 5 years that he had elapsed. However, had we gone one more year anyway, out of tolerance, the Department of Revenue would have said, you're not in compliance formally. And at that point, a municipality needs to think about hurrying up and doing a revaluation, because ultimately the Department of Revenue will come and do one for you if you haven't ultimately complied. So we are where we should be. Next, please. That same tax bill, now I want to emphasize what's outlined in red. That's the tax rate that you would have seen on the most recent tax bills. That 0.024 applies to everybody and every business in the city. And what I've done is shown you what is the revenue neutral tax rate. It's important, I think, and I'm going to mention this a couple times more. Assessments, revaluations, they're revenue neutral. Matter of fact, the city of Fond du Lac loses money as a result of a revaluation. Why? Because it's revenue neutral, plus we've got to pay about $250,000 to get it done. But it's all to make sure that we've got accuracy and uniformity. But what I'm illustrating here is the what if. The what if is, instead of the $3 million in assessed value that our current rate was based upon, it was based upon a value that we have redetermined post-revaluation, almost $4.7 billion. What I'm showing you there is the rate is going to go down citywide. The school district's rate will surely go down, county's rate will go down, Tech College and the cities will go down. And the total of that, the revenue neutral rate for right now would be that 0.016. What it'll be next year, that'll be based on everybody's levy calculations and such, but I just wanted to illustrate to you about what it would look like if we took a snapshot in time as of today. Next, please. So across the city, about 54% increase in assessed values, and you can see the components thereof. About 67% for houses and other residential properties, and 32% for commercial properties in terms of increases. I figured that the numbers at the bottom would catch your attention. In 2019, we're about $138,000 on average assessed value, and now in 2025, almost $250,000. Next, please. I'm going to, in a minute, give you some commentaries from social media because it'll help us focus on what people are going to ask you about. And one thing that's really important to remind them is that you, the governing body, just like the Board of Education, County Board, and the board at the Tech College, you're the ones that set the tax levy. The assessment has nothing to do with that, and so you will hear a drumbeat about extra taxes, more taxes, et cetera. That's not the point of an assessment. Matter of fact, Les doesn't do anything with taxes. He's an expert in a lot of things, but that's not his thing. And just, it's important to remember too, that what's moving as a result of the assessment is the tax rate. That's how we get this revenue neutral concept for this moment in time as we talk about this. Now, that said though, the assessments determine each of our shares of the overall assessment. So if I own 0.0009% of the city of Fond du Lac's property, that might change a little bit as a result of the assessment. It depends. It's an individual thing for each property owner. Maggie, next, please. So here's some comments that were early on social media, and then I'll give you a few from today. You see here that theme about taxes. I've heard through the grapevine that property taxes could go up as much as 40%. That's a common thing. Another one's just frustration, talking about if my property taxes don't go down, which is a fear that they're going to go up. In other words, they need, meaning we need to stop, or they'll be dealing with a lot of more homeless people, assuming the taxes will go up. Another person says, I think you can fight your increase on your property tax. We're going to talk about that. Les is going to go into more detail. And then lastly, on this slide, the cost is up on everything, so they want to make more money, and the revaluation is going on. It's a sad world. We will tax out of our house. Plus, they must be a house where they've got lead pipes to be replaced. So there's some friction there. Another one I heard a lot of that, and I think we're going to hear a lot more of, because people don't really understand how the different taxing entities are independent of one another. A person writes, the school referendum failed, but don't worry, people, they will find a way to get their money. Another person says, I hope this extra money goes towards street maintenance. And a couple more, oh boy, here it comes, people, prepare to sell your house when the taxes double or more. And then lastly, person writes, mill rates better be going down, and we talked a little bit about that. Property tax never stops going up, and we'll be getting the short end of the stick. So the themes there, taxes are going to go up as a result of this, and we've got, essentially, this is a workaround, I think a lot of people might think, to get more taxes without going out it the normal way through the budget process and the discussions about the tax levy. And then this connection with the school board and the referendum, I just read one. There's a number of those, so I think that's something you're going to hear about. So with that, we can go to the next slide. I'll just touch on this, show you these. Les is going to talk about open book and what will be ongoing in a couple of weeks, plus what's going to go on next week with his staff answering questions. Next, please. What are your questions for me before I turn it over to Les? And if, we don't get them all answered and asked now, we can do it after Les does his thing.
Mr. Mullen?
Yes, we talked about at the last meeting how individual homeowners, their rates may go up or down depending on where they are versus the average. Would you just go over that again to kind of explain it to people?
Right, so the city average is 54%. That's kind of an important number. So if somebody opens their notice of assessment in a couple of days, a quick benchmark is to look at what it was and what it is going to be and determine that percentage. That percentage is not in the letter. That's something that a property owner needs to figure out for themselves. But that 54% is kind of telling you, is my share of the overall going to stay about the same, meaning it's around 54% or so? Is it going to go up, meaning it's above 54%, or is it going to go down? Those are the three directional things. And I really don't talk about property taxes when I talk about that. I talk about the share. And so that's kind of how that's going to split. Now, I would think, based on the results that showed residential real estate on average is going to go up 67%, there are going to be a lot of people north of 54% who own houses. And there's going to be a lot of people who own businesses that are south of 54% because the average there was 32. So that's 54 of those, the key number.
And 54 is the aggregate. The number that homeowners, who are the people who are going to call us, that's 67% for them.
That's right.
So if their assessed value goes up 67, they're on par with all of the other residential property.
That's true.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Leering?
Do you think you could just give a good basic answer that any resident can understand for the one question you brought up about the school? Okay, you said the school referendum failed, so they will find a way to get their money. I've already been hearing things about that.
Sure.
So can you just give us a basic way to answer that? That's good.
You've got nothing to do with the referendum. Call Mr. Zimmerman at the school.
No, I can't give that answer. No. I know.
So the referendum really, had it passed and the fact that it failed, not really connected to this, right? I mean, because again, what the school district said in terms of the $7.5 million or $10 million, because they were talking about two different parts of the referendum, those numbers would have been 7.5 or 10 million, regardless of what the assessments were, right? So revenue neutral, that's the answer, revenue neutral. The share people would have paid into the referendum had it passed would have been based on the rate, the tax rate that's determined by, whatever that amount is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Mr. Heisler?
Thank you. Mr. Moore, just a quick one. I noticed, speaking of the school referendum and that impact or perceived impact, I noticed that there was a reply on the city's Facebook page today that dealt with that question directly. And typically, there's not a lot of replies officially from the city, but if there is common themes that we're seeing throughout this process, obviously, we're going to see a lot of that on social media. Do you expect that the city will engage with some of that content or not so much?
The things we can answer factually, but not editorially,
Sure.
we'll answer factually.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Mr. Zimmerman because he has not asked any questions yet.
Thank you, Ms. Burrell.
Yep.
The one, I've already gotten questions on this, and here's the one I keep hearing, and hopefully I didn't jump the gun on it. How can they do this by just driving by or not going in my house? How do you answer that?
Les, you touch on that.
Sure. So we use the information that is in each individual property record card, and then we also use a recent sales, usually 2 or 3 years of recent sales, to build our valuation models. Certainly, there are different methods of performing revaluations, but for this particular revaluation, it was decided that the records generally are in good enough shape to be reliable, and we chose just to do a market update revaluation. A little bit of the trouble that we've been having lately with full walkthrough revaluations is there was a recent court case a few years ago that still gave people full appeal rights at the Board of Review, even if they denied us entry into their home. So what we've been seeing lately, because we've performed a couple of those full revaluations, is we used to gain 90 to 95% access or entry into people's homes. That has dropped below 50% now. So it's really tough to justify spending that kind of money to get that kind of result.
Thank you.
Mr. Zimmerman, I would add too that what Les is referring to, that property information, people can look at that. It's available to everybody you can look at anybody's and anybody can look at other ones, and you can see the completeness of it, the dimensions of each floor, a description of each floor, et cetera. And when someone takes a permit out to do an addition or something like that, that's also a trigger for the city assessor to know that there's something going on in that property too that needs to be updated in the system. So it stays current in that way. You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Mullen.
Yeah, just a couple suggestions. On Facebook, when we get questions specifically about this, perhaps we can put a link to either this discussion or the previous discussion, and just like, okay, here, watch this. And then the other thing, just to my colleagues, when people start asking about taxes, is remind them that there are 4 distinct taxing entities on their property tax: the city, the schools, the county, and the technical college. We have control of one of those, and the one that we have control over is not going to change. So, that's it. Thank you.
Well, and I'll just add one more question, because another comment that I've seen kind of spreading around on social media is people who are like, why should I continue to improve my property if neighboring properties are not, and because they think that's causing an imbalance. And on the one hand, obviously, like, you should have some incentive to want your property to be nice for yourself, but I was wondering if you have any suggestions of how to respond to residents who might be concerned in that respect.
Les, I'll take a run at it, and then while you're doing your presentation, I would imagine that it's a person's personal choice as to how much they want to invest in their home, because ultimately, if you're ever going to sell your house, or your heirs are going to sell your house for you, it's all about market value, right? It's all about what the real estate agent says it's worth. And so that's I would say an investment in your house is really done for that reason, not with a concern about property taxes. That's,
Yeah, thank you. I didn't expect you to have a perfect answer for that one, but I know that's one that popped up, I think, on the city's Facebook page as well. So-
it is, and, you know, Ms. Brault, there are some folks who wonder why each taxpayer doesn't pay an identical amount. In other words, take all the properties, divide that number into the tax levy. And that's, perhaps it's been considered, but it's never been done. It's always been based upon the value of people's real property.
All right, thank you. All right, now we'll move on to the next part of the presentation.
Great, thank you. So as you've heard tonight, assessment notices were mailed today. So we expect residents to start receiving those notices soon, likely Friday or this weekend. And they're going to start, residents are going to start asking a series of common questions. Questions like, revaluation notices have been sent, what happens now? Next slide, please. So before I really, dive into that, I want to relay to you what we've done with our staffing. So our typical staffing consists of 3 full-time individuals. They're located right here in-house at the city-county building, of course, on the city side, 4th floor. And what we've done for this revaluation and open book process is we've doubled our staffing. So we do expect that this process is going to be busy, with the increases that we've seen since 2019. And, it's going to be my job to keep an eye on what kind of volume we're experiencing as far as emails, phone calls, in-person appointments. And if we need to expand our staff or add more in-person open book dates, we're certainly going to do that. Because ultimately, we want to ensure that all residents have an opportunity to speak with an assessor in regards to their assessment or concerns they may have, or to get questions answered as well. Next slide, please. So another common question that people may start asking is, what is the assessor's office availability for questions? So really, there's kind of 3 different timeframes or segments. And, of course, we're available during normal business hours on weekdays. And really between when residents receive their notice and May 11th, we're going to be available by phone, email, and by special appointment only. So I have no doubt in my mind that people are going to be on vacation during the physical in-person open book, and we're going to need to accommodate their schedule. So we'll do that. We'll invite them up to the 4th floor, and we'll have those in-person meetings. The second time frame is our in-person open book meetings. Those take place between May 12th and May 16th. And that's going to occur right here on the 1st floor at the city-county building. We have a couple of rooms reserved. We're going to have multiple assessors available, and we're going to be creating a schedule in our assessor's office for people that want specific times. And then the third or last kind of time frame is really after our in-person open book, all the way through the day before the board review. So that takes us all the way through August 12th. Technically, we're really still in open book session. During that time, again, we're going to be available by phone, email, and again, by special appointment. Certainly, there's going to be people that things come up, life happens, vacations happen, and they're going to need an appointment after that 5/12 through 5/16 dates. So again, we're going to accommodate their schedules. And then I just wanted to touch on, I guess, the power of communication. That is a large part of what assessors do on a daily basis. And something that I have gone over with my staff, are these key points. And, our ability to communicate effectively will leave a lasting impact on our city residents. I don't think there's a truer statement than that. Effective communication involves not only delivering a message, but also active listening. So during these open book meetings, whether it be by phone or email or in person, we're not just going to be speaking at residents, right? Certainly, we're going to be relaying some information, but we're also going to be engaged in active listening because they're going to want to share their concerns or maybe share information with us that we weren't aware of when we made the assessment. Or maybe they have an appraisal or some other opinion of value they'd wish that we would consider. And certainly, we're going to take that information, review it, and then circle back with them. One of the other things that we really want to do is make sure that residents are better informed about the process and understand their new assessed value. And, really at the end of the day, after these conferences, a lot of the, possible discrepancies, or maybe it's just education, a lot of it gets worked out at open book. There are instances where at the end of the day, we may just agree to disagree, right? And we may have a different opinion on the value of a certain property. But we want to make sure that the resident certainly had a positive experience with our department. We want to be open and transparent and let them know, hey, this is the information that we used. If you have any information that you'd like us to review, we'll certainly do that. Next slide. And then I wanted to touch on open book and what to expect, because I think this is another question that residents are going to have is, what should I expect out of this process? They may be a first-time home buyer. The last open book they may have went to was 2019, and whether, I know that was only six years ago, but gosh, I have problems remembering last week sometimes. So, open book really is an informal process. So again, we're going to sit down, if it's a physical in-person open book, we're going to sit down across the table with these residents, and we're going to relay information about the general revaluation process. A little bit redundant here, but again, we're going to be active listeners, and we're going to share information. So we're going to have each individual's, we call it PRC, it stands for property record card. And that has all the different components that are listed in the house, whether it be age, condition, number of bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, the sketch, any outbuildings, the land size. So we're going to go run through that information with our residents here and make sure first that we have the correct information on file. And then secondly, we're going to show them a sample of recent comparable sales from their neighborhood, that support our assessment, and kind of how those stack up against their property. And like I touched on before, there may be documentation that residents provide that they wish for us to review. And certainly if it's pertinent information, those are things that we make photocopies of, we write notes about, and then we take back to our office, we review that, and then we circle back with a follow-up letter. So regarding those follow-up letters, we're going to mail those back to residents no later than July 13th. And those are going to inform all the residents that have attended open book, either by phone or email or in person, of where they stand in their assessed value. Has it been amended since the original assessed value that they received, or has it been denied? And certainly, after that mailing goes out, we always have some follow-up conversations with individuals. They may want to have a further conversation with us. Maybe they forgot to relay something, and so those conversations they're not as frequent as the open book appointments are, but certainly we're going to be responding to those questions, likely all the way up and just before border review. Next slide, please. And then lastly, the last kind of question as residents navigate through this is, boy, what if I'm displeased with, with the assessor's opinion, and I want to appeal my new assessed value to the Board of Review? So the Board of Review is a much more formal process than open book is. There is a filing deadline, so the resident must file a Board of Review objection form. It has to be filed with the city clerk, and that has to be filed at least 48 hours before our scheduled August 13th Board of Review meeting. That is one option. The other option is to give notice of intent to appear before the Board of Review. Again, this has to be done with the city clerk, and there is that 48-hour requirement before the August 13th Board of Review meeting. And not only do they have to give their notice of intent to appear, but they have to show up during the first 2 hours of the August 13th Board of Review and request an objection form, fill that out completely, and file that with the city clerk. So if they've met one of those two requirements, then the city clerk will reach out and schedule a time for that resident to appear. And this really begins that formal Board of Review process. And during that formal process, the burden of proof falls on the property owner to demonstrate that their assessment is incorrect. So I guess what I want to relay, and sometimes this has happened to me in the past at other board reviews, is someone might come in and they might be a little bit unprepared, and they might say, well, I'm objecting to my assessment, and they filled out the required paperwork, and they don't have anything to back it up. It's just too high because it's too high. And so in those cases, you're not giving a lot for the Board of Review, who's acting as judge and jury to chew on. So again, those residents would want to demonstrate with maybe it's recent sales, maybe it's a equity issue among like properties. They want to demonstrate some other value other than the assessed value as being correct. During the testimony, the resident and the assessor, they both get sworn in, and they both provide oral testimony, again, with that supporting documentation as to their two different opinions of value. There is time during those board review cases to ask questions. The assessor could ask questions of the resident could ask questions of the assessor. The Board of Review has the opportunity to ask questions of either party. But once testimony is given, and once questions have been asked and answered, then the Board of Review is going to move into their deliberation time frame, and that's really when they're acting as judge and jury. So the Board of Review is going to make a decision only based on the testimony that they have heard. And so after that decision is made, there is some paperwork that needs to be filled out, and the city will then provide the Board of Review notice of decision to the resident, and there'll also be a copy that goes to the assessor, and the clerk keeps a copy as well. So if a resident is still unhappy with the Board of Review's decision, they can further their appeal to Department of Revenue or to Circuit Court. That information is spelled out on the Board of Review determination form that they receive either by certified mail or it's handed to them at the Board of Review that day. So I believe they have either a 60 or a 90-day time frame to file with DOR or Circuit Court, depending on which avenue they pursue. So that really kind of takes us nicely through, or from when assessment notices get sent or received by residents through the Board of Review process. So council members, I'd just like to thank you for your time tonight, and certainly if you have any questions for me, fire away.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions from council members? Mr. Mullen.
really a question so much as a comment to people potentially watching this explanation of things. If you're a homeowner and you look at the new value versus your old value, and you divide the small number into the bigger one, if it's 1.67, your taxes aren't going to change, right? Because your property, your new assessed value has gone up 67%. That's the average for residential. So don't freak out unless it's gone up more than that. And if it's gone up 50%, only 50%, you're going to pay less. So, I mean, I just want to stress to people, because I've talked to a lot of people about this already, warning them that this is coming, that, unless you have gone up more than the average, you're not going to pay more taxes. So.
I mean, one of the largest and most important parts of the job for an assessor is uniformity and equity, right? So we want to make sure that, if we're speaking about a 1950s ranch house that's 1,400 square feet, let's say, we want to make sure that that assessment is relatively similar compared to a lot of other 1950s ranch house of similar size. Now, of course, every home is a little bit different, in a little bit different condition. May have a rec room. They have different components, right? But generally speaking, we want to make sure that those assessed values line up with one another and that they're uniform with one another.
Thank you. Mr. Heisler.
Thank you very much. Just a quick question, because this has already happened with me as well. There's been a couple of, I've kind of tried to just do the overview. I sent the link of a previous meeting, and I got all the response that I got back is unfortunately, I think, something that we're going to be dealing with, and they're going to say, oh, they're not going to talk to me, or they won't talk to me, or whatever. So you guys are swamped. We can't really force you to have those conversations because we know you're already doing them. But how do we respond when that is when that becomes the narrative, is that they won't talk to me, or I've tried and they won't call me back, or whatever it is they say? Because I'm sure that's something we're going to be dealing with.
Sure. Yeah, and that's kind of my job to stay on top of that potential problem and add staff if we need to. So, Jody Paulson from our office, she's going to certainly reach out to me and let me know, hey, are we getting overwhelmed? And if we are, we're going to staff up. And we're going to make sure that we have more than ample availability to be able to return phone calls and emails and have those in-person meetings. I was just having this conversation today with another person, and certainly when someone's a bit amped up, possibly, the last thing they want, and the last thing they like is having to wait 2 days to get a response from the assessor's office, right? So, it's our goal, and that's something that's very important to us, is to get back to these residents as soon as possible, and have as many conversations as we have to again, educate, and to be able to have that exchange of information and to let them know that, yes, we are going to be taking a second look into this based on the information that you provided or you've relayed, and we will be getting a formal letter back out to you letting you know of that outcome of that review.
And just a quick follow-up, Mr. Moore, I'm going to lean on you for this. You've already told us this in another meeting, and you've also sent this to us on email, but just for the benefit of the public, is if we as city council members get correspondence and then we need to send it on to continue the conversation with additional staff members, how does that process work, and who do we send that out to?
Send it to Les. Les, that was gonna be one of my closing comments. All of you need that as an early comment, early response to someone, to call the city assessor's office, because we've heard these conversations and they immediately get very specific. Right. And Les and his team, they're ready for that. Whereas, you know, you and I, we're not.
Right.
And yet, people will want some explanation from you. Just assure them that Les and his team are going to be there, and they're going to answer the phone, they're going to answer email, and frankly, we're all there all day, so, you know, they can come in too.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much.
I would say the same thing. I mean, we get up and we do this every day. So, you know, certainly you can provide some kind of explanation, but I would suggest just, you know, trying to forward them to our office, and we'll take it from there. And then I'll hand out some business cards as well to all of you with my email and contact information, so that you can directly email me if you have, you know, some residents that need to be contacted right away.
Perfect. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from council? I'm not seeing anybody, and I want to say thank you for the presentation, and thank you in advance for, I know you're going to get just tons of calls and emails, and so that you're prepared to be active listeners and make sure our residents feel heard, and I'm really glad that you have a process laid out and you're prepared for what's potentially going to be a much bigger response, because we have such a large discrepancy in those values, so thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Brault, you think about 15,000, if 5% of those people reach out, that's a big number. You know, that's over 700 people. And so we're mentally prepared. I know Monday's going to be busy. Maggie, could I lean on you for a minute to do something unscripted? Could you navigate to the city's website, please? A couple of things came up tonight I wanted to touch on. And then in the search box, top right, would you type in revaluation, please? Okay. I put you in a bad spot. And then would you select the property revaluation? Okay, so this also is something that you can use to refer people to. I also wanted to mention that if you, Maggie, would you select under the assessor's office the real estate assessment? I just wanted to tour this with everybody. So, Mr. Zimmerman, you asked about, or it led to, your question led to a conversation about the detail that is available to the city assessor. If you would, Maggie, select Visit Assessor, thank you. So this then takes you to the access point. There's no password or anything like that needed. You can type in something as simple as the digits of someone's house. Say they live at 106. You type in 106, don't need the street, and then select search, and it'll produce the results for all of that, and then you can select one of those properties. And the nice thing is that shows anyone out there exactly what the assessor has on file. And all the detail with square footages, et cetera, et cetera. Matter of fact, Maggie, since you did that, thank you. You just select one of those. And then you, if you would, click View Full Report. This takes just a minute because it's gathering all the information. And then you can open that PDF. Let's go back one, please. And then click here, yes. So this is just an example. And by the way, the top right where it says Summary of Assessment, this house comes in at 121. Over the weekend, the total value, less, I think it'll be over the weekend, will be adjusted to the new value, by the way. But Maggie, if you'll just scroll through, so that's got all the information. It's got a drawing of this house. It's a one-story, it appears. So it's got all that information there, and I wanted to share that with you because if someone were to ask you, well, how can I find out? It's right here, and it's one jump from our webpage to get to this. So, Ms. Brault, I just wanted to touch on that since we're all together, And that'll be updated, like I said, over the weekend. And, it'll be ready to go for the first of the week.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other questions or concerns or comments that anybody wants to share? Otherwise, we will end that input item. Thank you very much to all of you for the wonderful presentations.
Thank you.
And with that, that ends our input items, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Oh, motion by Mr. Zimmerman. I'm going to give the second to Ms. Leering. And this is not debatable. Please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. We are adjourned.